It was called the worst mining disaster in the U.S. in 40 years. In 2010, the Upper Big Branch mine in Montclair, West Virginia, exploded, killing 29 people. Those who worked in the mine say they were scared to talk to inspectors.
If you wanted a job, you kept your mouth shut. Me, like a lot of other miners, mining is about the only industry. It's the biggest industry in the state of West Virginia. You have children. You want them to have. You want to provide for them. I was a single mom. You
needed that job.
I did the best I could. We did the best we could for our families.
Safety first is the stuff of idiocy. It allows us to begin to believe that somebody other than us might care more about our well-being than we do. And the minute we buy into that nonsense, then we embrace the warm grip of complacency.
I'd like to thank Mr. McCoy for sharing his oxygen with our brother.
Absolutely.
Thank him so much. Because Jerry's didn't work. His oxygen didn't work. And Randall shared his with Jerry. And if they both had one that would work, they might have lasted a little longer.
Maybe all of them would have came out.
Yeah,
all of them might have come out if they worked.
Let's cut to the chase, Greg.
Yes.
This country's full of idiots. Idiots are harmless when they stick by themselves. They run out of gas on the highway, they vote for Gary Johnson. That's fine. The problem is when idiots join forces.
Today, not only do I speak for my sister and my nephew and my entire family, I'm going to take it upon me to also speak for the rest of these families. We expect to get answers to these questions. And so far, these answers have not come.
Other idiots read the Times and they think, wow, abolish billionaires. That sounds fair, and they start scratching their heads. This is the paper of record. This is what I call an idiot brush fire. Everybody starts talking about abolishing billionaires, and it spreads.
We're not going to let this rest. We know in our hearts this can be corrected. And it needs to be done immediately. It needs to be done now. And it's on you. It's on you to make the changes. We rely on you to make for sure.
And then we have to come in and put out the idiot brush fire, right? But you know what? We get burned putting out the fire because you want to know why?
Why?
We're sitting around defending billionaires.
That's the point.
And then we look like idiots that were out of touch
It's a
and
trap.
sucking up to the billionaires.
It can't happen again. People's lives have been changed forever because of what's happened. And you can't let this happen again. No one needs to go through this ever again.
Howdy, sprouting sunflowers. On the morning of January 2nd, 2006, 13 miners went underground in Sago, West Virginia. They worked at the local coal mine, the economic heart of their small community. The sky was dark and stormy that morning, but darkness was nothing new for these men. They had dedicated their lives to one of the most dangerous professions in the United States, coal mining. Unbeknownst to them, as they descended into the mine, a methane leak that had been improperly sealed was filling the air with flammable gas. It was 6:30 a.m. when a bolt of lightning from the storm outside turned all that free-floating gas into a bomb. The mine exploded and collapsed, trapping the 13 men inside. They spent several days underground, breathing in toxic fumes. If their emergency equipment had all worked, several of the men may have survived, but their emergency equipment didn't work. By the time the rescue crew found the group, 12 of the 13 men had died, leaving only 26-year-old Randall McCloy alive and in critical condition. And despite lengthy investigations, tons of media attention, and heartfelt declarations that this could never happen again, it did. In 2010, the Upper Big Branch mine disaster left 29 workers dead. In 2007, the Crandall Canyon mine disaster got 6 miners and 3 rescue workers killed. I could go on. Every single year, we see miners die because the companies they work for break the law by putting their employees in lethal danger. And here's the thing, the coal miners are not alone here. In 2018, which is the latest year for which we have good data, 5,250 American workers died from traumatic injuries on the job. Coal miners, construction workers, oil rig employees, truck drivers, these people die every year from preventable workplace traumatic injuries, and yet most of their deaths go completely unreported in the national media, in part because of how normalized death at work has become. All of these numbers and stories, they highlight a much larger issue. The United States has a problem, and its name is workers' rights. And now, here's one more big number, and this is something that affects every single American worker. 47. Can you guess what it is? You give up? 47 is the number of years it's been since American workers got a raise. Ever hear your grandfather, talk about how great things were in the 1950s and kind of roll your eyes? As it happens, he was not entirely wrong. The period between 1948 and 1973 was a veritable golden age for the American worker. During this chunk of the 20th century, after World War II, the average American hourly wage went up 91%. It nearly doubled over the course of just 25 years. By 1973, American workers were making the modern equivalent of about $23.68 an hour. For most Americans who work about 1,800 hours a year, that was an average annual salary of $43,000 in modern American money. Why did wages grow so high?
Why?
Because the economy was growing, and as American workers became 98% more productive, their pay grew to match, with only an extra 7% going to the big boys at the top, which, compared to now, is a pretty solid deal. Then something bad happened. In 1973, the trend broke. Despite a massive growing economy and an increasing cost of living, American wages went stagnant. And by 2019, the average hourly wage had not grown 91% like before. No, in fact, it didn't even grow at all. Over the course of 46 years, between 73 and 2019, the average American wage went down. It went down to $19.33 an hour. The United States has been making more money, but unlike before, it did not go into our pockets. Where did it go?
The richest 1% on the planet own half the world's wealth. Since the financial crisis, the world's richest have seen their share of the pie increase from about 42% to 50%.
The only way that I can see to deploy this much financial resource is by converting my Amazon winnings into space travel.
Less than 1% of the world's adult population are millionaires, but they control 46% of the world's wealth.
And this is a live look at what's happening right now in space. That's Elon Musk's own Tesla convertible in orbit. The driver is a mannequin he's calling Starman. But
Jeffrey Epstein was very good at protecting himself and being secret. He owns a private island, and it's out there and it's isolated. He purchases that, and he owns the helicopter and the boats that took or transported him and the women and children over to the island.
Yeah, it went to the folks at the top. The people who think they own us because, quite frankly, they own everything else, so no surprise there. Wages for corporate executives and 1%ers skyrocketed while our cost of living got higher and higher and the pay we received remained the same. We've struggled to pay our rent, struggled to pay for college, struggled to pay for childcare and healthcare and transportation to and from jobs that pay us less, not more. As the cost of living goes up and Americans work harder than we ever have before, as the country gets wealthier and wealthier, we get nothing. We get less. Inexplicably, we get less. Fortunately, we are lucky enough to live in the world's most powerful democracy. We make the rules. So, how are we going to fix this one? The problem here is that sometime around 1973, our grandparents and great-grandparents got way too comfortable with the free market, took their hands off the wheel and said, hey, why don't we gamble with our children's future? They decided to defund public services and get really chill about voting, limiting their own political participation. They gave up their right to union membership because, you know, the economy is a sure thing. The economy will continue to grow given normal conditions, but it ain't growing for us anymore. Despite President Reagan's promises, the wealth does not trickle down. Money moves when we move it, when we redistribute the wealth from those who take to those who make. But before we can do any of that, we have to do the thing they hate most.
Idiots are harmless when they stick by themselves. You know, they run out of gas on the highway, they vote for Gary Johnson. The problem is when idiots join forces.
Yes, the billionaires weep when they see the many proles realizing that they're stronger together instead of apart. We've got to get organized, and that's why we have unions. It's no surprise the decline in American wages correlates so closely with the decline in union membership. We gave up the greatest, most secure source of power we had, and immediately after, all of our employers took advantage. Most of us, through sheer lack of cultural exposure, have a really limited understanding of what unions do. Here is a basic breakdown. First, collective bargaining. It's the heart and soul of any union. Collective bargaining happens when a group of employees decide to band together and increase their negotiating power. If a single worker named Olivia thinks that her company's health insurance plan should be expanded to cover emergency room care, she'd have limited power working on her own. But if all of Olivia's co-workers band together to pressure the company, they have a far greater chance of success. This type of organizing isn't just good because it promotes unity and social cohesion in the workplace, though that is a massive benefit. It's also great because it prevents harassment and retaliation from management. If some crazy executive wanted to fire every single employee during a strike, they would be barred from doing so because of the federal legal protections granted to workers' unions. That goes all the way back to the New Deal. Additionally, although businesses like Amazon just quake in fear at the idea of a workers' union, having a large body to properly represent all of your employees is good for a company in the long run. Communications issues and insular groupthink are inevitable in a workplace governed by fear. But when employees and managers stand on equal footing, open and honest discussion becomes so much easier. An organization only improves when its workers are healthy, well-rested, and don't feel the need to lie to their supervisors all the time. That is why German unions have seats on corporate boards, so that the perspective of the entire body of employees can be taken into account when major decisions are made. And unions don't just increase safety and income and happiness for their workers, they can transform entire generations. My grandparents on both sides of my family were union members. My father's father was a blue-collar worker with nothing beyond a high school education. He was able to support 9 children. My grandmother was able to stay home, take care of 9 kids, and volunteer for the church. And after they were grown, my father and all of his siblings had the opportunity to go to college and improve their way of life, all because of the foundation of support given to them in childhood. A foundation built entirely on my grandfather's union. Okay, now let's talk about the biggest roadblock in this whole process. As soon as unions gained massive power during the New Deal era, there were big money interests who wanted to take that power away. In 1947, Congress amended a key piece of New Deal legislation to allow states to pass so-called right-to-work laws. This change allowed state governments to bend labor rights laws by outlawing union security agreements, effectively taking all power of collective bargaining away from American unions. So the effect of this loophole was absolutely massive, and it's a huge part of the reason why union culture has been on such a steep decline in the past 6 or 7 decades, I guess? Jeez. States that pass these right-to-work laws see an average decrease in worker pay of 3.1% a year. How this isn't a violation of our right to assembly and association, I cannot say. It seems pretty unconstitutional to me. The far right is really good about pretending policies that hurt us are actually for our own good. But to be clear, anti-union laws obviously do not improve standards of living for middle-class Americans. They never have, and they never will. The rights of the American worker in the past few decades have been winnowed away so aggressively that we have nearly forgotten the power we have as the vast majority of American citizens. But money moves when we move it. So here are 3 clear-cut reforms that will allow us to properly elevate the power of the American middle class to where it was before. Number 1, first things first, we have to repeal these anti-union right-to-work laws. At the federal level, we need to repeal Section 164 of the 1947 Taft-Hartley Act. That's the portion of American labor law that allows state governments to abuse our union rights. However, political battles at the federal level are taking nowadays like 8 years on average to work out. Do you know where you can have a much bigger impact? At your state legislature. At your state legislature. State representatives have relatively small constituencies, and they're mostly unaccustomed to active citizen participation. This means even a small group of well-organized locals can apply enough pressure to change a member's vote. If you are in any of these states marked in blue, that is your best course of action. Go on Facebook, recruit 10 retired librarians and 3 stay-at-home moms, and start block walking for candidates who support the labor movement. Or alternatively, start protesting at the office of a state representative who doesn't support labor rights. No matter what, constantly work with your friends, neighbors, relatives, and co-workers to show your support for workers' rights by demanding that anti-union laws be repealed. needless to say, voting for members of Congress and the state legislature and city council and county commission are all essential parts of this plan. Please vote. I mean, duh. Number 2, get the facts. Get the facts. Get the facts. Get all them facts, baby. Right-wingers peddle misinformation about union organization all day, every day, like it's their top priority. Educate yourself on the way unions are treated in your state. Go on the AFL-CIO's website, memorize the rights you have in your state as a worker, and remember all of the rights of workers that need to be expanded in your state. Number 3, start a union. Even if you're in a state where workers' rights have been eviscerated by right-to-work laws, you still have the right to join a union. Even without the power of collective bargaining, unions can provide essential legal representation in disputes between you and your employer. And the respect and legitimacy that a union banner earns you are essential tools of political organization. If you use your union group to establish closer social and emotional connections between yourself and other members of your workplace, you as a body of workers will be stronger when the time comes to get involved in politics. Many professions, white collar, blue collar, and everything in between, have some form of union representation available. Just Google AFL-CIO, our unions and allies. They got it all right there. It's so good. Nice little package. It's great. But even if nothing else exists, you and your colleagues can start a union yourselves. That is not easy, but it helps. People are not disposable. By the mere fact that we are living, breathing human beings, we obviously deserve employers who respect our right to a safe and healthy workplace. Remember, money moves when we move it. And if we want the respect that we deserve, we're going to have to organize. Let's do this thing. My ass is sweating. I'm Monica, and my ass is sweating. My ass is sweating. It is. Number 1. I just can't even. Why is. God, I'm sad and happy. My joints all hurt, and I feel angry and drowsy. I'm like a toddler who's been dragged around Disneyland on a leash for 5 hours straight with 0 hydration but 3.5 churros. I'm a husk of a man. I wanna end the video so bad. I want to end this video. Jesus Christ. Oh, good Lord in heaven. Oh. Waterfall, waterfall, waterfall here, baby. I need to get a lavalier mic so I can record from this far away and just look graceful.
Together and talk about feelings. I think they.
Watching those hot, spicy Samantha clips. Because I need to get my confidence back. Isn't that right, ladies? Okay. At a certain point, I'll stop brushing my hair. It doesn't really matter when I stop. It looks the same. Well, it doesn't look the same, but no one notices the differences but me. And hell, even I don't when I'm rewatching the footage all the time. This is perfectly fine. This is fine. Fine. And dandy. It's simultaneously fine, but also dandy. And that's so great, isn't it? Anyway. Time to talk about unions. Come on. People are not disposable. Why the United States of America needs union representation, baby. Do. Union made. Anyway, folk songs are fun. If you live in Brooklyn and you're a gosh darn hipster, which I'm not, and I don't, thank Christ in heaven. Not enough in hipster, but I act a little like a hipster, and that term comes from opium dens. Right, this should be easy. Start. Howdy, sprouting sunflowers. Need to close that closet, don't I? I don't give a fuck. Howdy, sprouting sunflowers. That's way too heavy. Howdy, sprouting sunflowers. That's not good. That's what I'm gonna do. Howdy, sprouting sunflowers. On Monday, January... On the morning of January 2nd, 2006, 13 miners went underground in But Money Moves When We movement. Nope. Here are 3 clear-cut reforms that will allow us to during the New Deal era, there were people, there were corporations. Oh, mouths are gross. Okay. Like a terrifying beast.